Absolutely.
Okay. It also says the Attorney General will notify the ranking member and chairman of the Judiciary Committee in both bodies. Do you think he'll do that?
Absolutely.
Okay. It also says, to the extent consistent with applicable law, a description and explanation of instances, if any, in which the Attorney General concluded that a proposed action by a special counsel was so inappropriate or unwarranted under established departmental practices that it should not be pursued. So under this regulation, if Mr. Mueller recommends a course of action and Mr. Barr says, I don't think we should do that, he has to tell us about that event. Do you agree that's what the regulation requires?
Absolutely.
Do you believe he will do that?
Absolutely.
Okay. It also says the Attorney General may determine that public release of these reports would be in the public interest to the extent that the release would comply with applicable legal restrictions. Do you think he will be as transparent as possible?
Yes, and he said that, and I could add one thing to this, Mr. Chairman. The committee pressed him on what he meant by that. I know that Ranking Member Feinstein also raised this in her comments. But as James Clapper and other people noted yesterday, there's only so much that, as far that a nominee can go. You can't ask that he satisfy ethical standards when asking him to commit in advance to release of information that he hasn't seen yet, because part of his duty is to protect things like Rule 6C information, grand jury information, and the derivative information, privileged information. He is duty bound to review that. So the only thing a nominee can say is that he is going to err on the side of transparency and try to get as much of the report to Congress as possible.
Based on what you know about Mr. Barr, should we take him at his word?
Absolutely. I have never known Bill Barr in all the years that we have known each other. I've never known him to be anything but honest and straightforward. The last time he came in front of this committee, the chairman of that committee, one of your predecessors, praised Barr. He said that this is a sort of a throwback to what committee hearings used to be like, where the nominee actually answered questions. He's a very honest person. And if he said that he's going to err on the side of transparency, you can take it to the bank.
Okay. So, Mr. Johnson, thank you for coming today. I listened to your concerns about Mr. Barr. I voted for Holder and Lynch. Do you think I made a good decision voting for them to be Attorney General?
I do.
Why?
I think their presentation before this committee was honest, direct, but more importantly, they committed to protect our democracy. For African Americans, protecting democracy is to also regularly enforce efforts to ensure that all citizens can cast their ballot.
Right.
They committed to that, and they demonstrated that while they were in office.
Okay, and you believe Mr. Barr will not be committed to that?
Well, I have serious reservations and concern.
Okay.
Those concerns first start with this administration, their lack of enforcing Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act.
How much of it is about this administration versus Mr. Barr?
In many ways, it's difficult to separate the two.
So I just want to suggest something to you. There's a lot of concerns I had about the Obama administration. I will not bore you with my concerns. But I thought he chose wisely with Mr. Holder and Ms. Lynch because they have differences on policy than I, because I'm a Republican. But I thought they would be good stewards of the law and they would be fair arbiters of being Attorney General. It never crossed my mind that I would vote against them because I have policy disagreements. If that's going to be the new standard, none of us are going to vote for anybody on the other side. So thank you for your input.
But if I may, Mr. Chair?
Please.
Going beyond policy disagreement, this nation have had a long history of discriminatory practices, particularly in the criminal justice system. And anytime we have a nominee to come before this committee who truly don't appreciate the disparities in the criminal justice system, as he stated yesterday, that goes beyond policy disagreement. That goes towards whether or not we understand that equal protection of the law should be afforded to all citizens.
I want to make sure you understand what he said, because I remember Senator Booker asked him, and he says, yes, the crack cocaine sentences were disproportionate to the African American individual, and that's why we changed the disparity between powder cocaine and crack cocaine. He acknowledged that, but in 1992, he thought the biggest victim of rampant violent crime were, low-income, mostly minority communities. So I don't buy what you're saying about him not understanding their differences and how one group is affected, particularly in the drug arena. So I think what he was trying to do is talk about crime. But here's what's perplexing to me. The NAACP has been in the fight for social and racial justice for a very long time. And I don't know how we got here, but you do a scorecard every year. And in 2017, every Democrat got 100%. I got 22%. Grassley got 11. Cornyn got 11. Lee got 11. Cruz got 11. Sass got 6. Ernst got 11. Kennedy got 17. Tillis got 11. And Crapo got 6. There's a disparity here. I hope you think that because I disagree with your scorecard rating, that I'm not a racist. And I certainly don't know how to close this gap.
So
I'd like to.
Right. So the NAACP, we're a nonpartisan organization. Our scorecard is not based on political parties. Our scorecard is based on our agenda.
Well, how do you explain the differences?
If you allow me, our agenda is set by the delegates from across the country. And we're very clear that discrimination should not be a part of,
How many of them are
any
Republicans?
agenda. Excuse me?
How many of them are Republicans?
We don't determine how many members are Republicans. We have Republicans among our membership on our national board.
I don't want to.
But if you allow me to explain the report card, right? And so we establish our agenda not based on political parties because we understand that political parties are nothing more than vehicles for agendas. And as many African Americans were members of the Republican parties before the 1965 Voting Rights Act, many African Americans may decide their agenda based on the party's platform. And if party platforms align with the needs and interests of our communities, then they would vote for a platform that support their needs, whether it's access to quality public education, ensuring that all African Americans and Americans can cast a fair ballot, fair housing policies, making sure we have true tests to determine disparate impact. Those are the issues we are concerned about. Those are not partisan issues. Those are policy issues. And individuals who run under party labels, they decide based on the platform that they believe which party label they run under. We don't make partisan decisions. We make policy decisions, and it's informed by members across the country. Some are Democrats, some are Libertarians, some are Republicans.
You may not think that that your agenda is party neutral. All I can tell you is somebody who wants to solve problems. It's pretty odd to me that every Democrat gets 100%, and I do the best as a Republican getting 22. Maybe the problem's all on our side. I don't think so. I think the agenda that you're pursuing in the eyes of conservatives is not as good for the country as you think it is. And it's got nothing to do about Republican and Democrat. It's more it has to do about liberal and conservative. You got to ask yourself, why does every conservative on this committee, the best I can do is to get 22?
Mr. Chairman.
Well, I think it's a different question. I think the members of the Republican Party should ask yourselves, are you willing to be expansive enough and inclusive to ensure the rights of individuals, despite their racial background, their interests are met, not based on conservative or liberal tendencies, but based on those individuals' needs and the interests that they advocate for.
Will you ask yourselves why I can't get better than 22% from conservatives?
Yeah, sure. We can go down each one of the policy agendas, and we can go through each one of them, and we can make a determination.
That's a good discussion.
I want to sharpen this discussion because I think it's an important discussion, and give you what concerns me when it comes to this entire discussion. This is about whether the nominee is going to aggressively, faithfully enforce the civil rights laws. And let me give you a couple of facts.
Can I ask you one question? You can give me all the facts you want.
Yeah.
Name one Republican that you would support.
I'm not here to talk about Republicans and Democrats. I supported him when he was a Democrat.
I just can't think of a better person to pick than Mr. Barr if you're a Republican. So I don't know who's going to do better than him in terms of experience, judgment, and temperament. So if this guy doesn't cut it, I'm at a loss of who we can pick.
Well, but Senator, let me make my point because I want the committee to be extremely clear on this, and I want to cite two examples. Attorney General Sessions, and we have to talk about his record because the question for us is whether Mr. Barr is going to continue the policies of Attorney General Sessions when it comes to enforcing civil rights laws. In two instances, Attorney General Sessions, in his first days and months in office, had the Justice Department change sides in the middle of an important civil rights case.
Elections matter.
Texas, but Senator, the enforcement of the law does not. The enforcement of civil rights laws is neutral when it comes to elections. So what Attorney General Sessions had the Justice Department do is switch in the Texas voter ID law after the judge had made a finding, preliminary finding, that the Texas voter ID law was discriminatory. You know what it would be an example of? If Drew Brees or Tom Brady, after leading his team to a lead, went in at halftime and came out with the jersey of the other team on. In the middle of the case, secondly, in the Ohio voter purge case, the same thing occurs. Why did the Justice Department, without any discussion with the Congress, without any discussion with the civil rights community, switch sides miraculously and immediately? That should not have anything to do with who wins an election.
I will say this. I could have given you 100 examples of where Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch had a different view of a statute or a policy than I did. But if you don't expect elections to matter, that's a mistake. The policy differences we have are real. To expect Trump to win and everything Obama did stay the same is unrealistic. All I'm asking is that let's look at qualifications, because a Democrat will win one day, and they will nominate somebody with a completely different policy view than I have. It will be a very simple decision. If I can find a difference, I'll vote no. The question I'm trying to ask the country is, do you expect quality people to be chosen by the other side who has differences with you? If the answer is yes, then Mr. Barr is as good as it will get.
Well, you know, Senator, lots of us thought you were going to be nominated as Attorney General.
Would you have supported me?
Hey, guess what? I know we'd have had a discussion, and I wouldn't close the door on that.
Well, I appreciate that.
So I'll say that.
I don't think
We
I'm
thought you were
nearly
gonna
as
be
qualified
nominated.
as Mr. Barr. I don't think I could hold a candle to him. But the fact you said that about me, I appreciate the hell out of it. And let's see if we can find a way to get me above 22%.
Let's work on it.
All right. Change a few policies.
Reverend Risher, I just want to say something to you personally.